Good morning. My name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the West Tampa CDC. I want to apologize for not attending the last public safety meeting. My background, and we'll talk about that later on once I show you what's going on in terms of crime in West Tampa. My background includes public safety, community development, and economic development. Having to do with public safety, the approach we take is first, and we're going to talk about that today, what types of crime are being committed. Later on, we'll talk about who is committing the crime. Then we'll talk about why they're committing crime. And then finally, we'll talk about what can we do in order to reduce crime. What is the West Tampa approach? These three elements. So let's go and talk about what does it look like in terms of crime in West Tampa. The information I'm providing you today, you can go online and get this information. This information here is from a time period from January the 1st of this year to today's date, which is the 25th. Just give a breakdown as to what types of crime are being committed. I want to make some observations. As you can see, two major contributors to crime in West Tampa is assault, simple, and driving while under the influence. The reason why I highlight that is because what this tells us is that we have a high propensity towards violence in the community. We also have issues with narcotic violations. When we look at robberies for that time period, aggressive assaults, weapon charges. Now, let's go and look at when is the crime being committed. This gives a background on what day of the week crime is being committed in West Tampa. Surprisingly enough, between the first of this year up until this point, most of the crimes have been done on a Sunday. Now, let's look at this time last year. Let's go back to 2022 up into 2022 from January to December. What you're going to notice is that there is, when you compare the two, more crime being committed now in terms of the level of crime than it was last year. This pie chart shows crime in West Tampa from January the 1st of 2022 to December 31st of 2022. Again, this information is coming from Community Crime Map. We use two other search mechanisms when we look at crime in the community to get a feel of that. In addition to information that's coming from the Tampa Police Department itself. So if we look at all of last year, we see that assaults is high, but surprisingly enough, it's higher now. If we look at the numbers from the last presentation we looked up, so assaults are really high. When we look at DUIs compared to in 2023, in 2022, the numbers was less. So there's something going on that, and this is only, the information we shared before is only the 3 months of 2023. with a high number of simple assaults, as well as DUI. So let's look at some other information related to last year. When we look at last year, notice the day that most crime was being committed was on a Friday. Remember when we look at the first 3 months earlier, the day of the week in which the most crime was being conducted was on a Sunday. Now, in addition to that, this software here allows you to break down to see specifically where was the crime being committed, as well as the type of crime. So as you see, this software allows us to go in and see exactly what type of crime it was, as well as what block the crime was being committed on. As you can see, the number of crime committed in 2022 was 500 for that year. Let's look at the same number of crime during this time this year, and we're going to have some takeaways from that. When we look at the number of crimes that has been committed from January the 1st of this year up until now, so far there's been 100 crimes committed. We also can break down where it was done. This helps us as we begin to plot a strategy on where are the hotspots in the area, and look at a strategy to zoom in, certainly begin to focus on strategies. Now, the West Tampa strategy, this is the pause for a second on this data. The West Tampa strategy consists of prevention, intervention, and deterrence, and law enforcement as a last component of how do we begin to address the issue of not only violence in our community, but crime in general. The other database that we use in order to determine what does it look like in West Tampa is this data source that you're looking now. By the way, we use about 3 other search mechanisms to look at the demographics in West Tampa. From the census tract, which is one of the most in-depth databases, 2 other databases that we use, commercial database that we use to collect information on West Tampa. Now, we're looking now at Old West Tampa. Keep in mind, West Tampa also consists of other are neighborhood groups, and we can do each neighborhood group individually. But this from a perspective as to what do people see when they go online and search for the livability for West Tampa, Old West Tampa. We see that in terms of crime, that's an F. In terms of employment, that's an F. And in terms of schools, that's an F. Now, what we do have going for us is that in terms of the cost of living, we get a minus in the area of Old West Tampa. Keep in mind, we can do this on all individual neighborhood groups as we begin to get a feel for what are those negative indicators that we have to strategically attack. In this area, we know that it's crime, employment, and schools. When we look at crime specifically in West Tampa, what we notice is that total crime is down by 15% compared to the nation. However, when we look at violent crime, those numbers are about 62% compared to where we were, compared to the nation. I want you to take this in, 62%. When we look at employment, we notice that when you look at total household income, it's down by 48% compared to the rest of the nation. Also, unemployment is 22% compared to the rest of the nation. When we look at our schools, we see that in terms of high school, with 24% below in that respect. So again, this information right here, this gives a feel as to what are we looking at in terms of beginning to address the issue of crime in West Tampa. We use what's known as a public health, public safety, and economic development strategy to begin to address the issue of public safety in West Tampa. The strategy and plan we put together, and we also have a rough draft of that plan, again, focus on prevention, intervention, deterrence, and lastly, law enforcement as a strategy towards reducing crime in the community.